Okay, Angie, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's taken a little while for us to find a good time. I know you've been super busy. How are things going?
Good. Busy is probably an understatement, but I'm not complaining. I think the entire talent space is busy and has been busy for quite some time. And I really don't see anything changing in the next couple of months and going into next year. So yes, and I know you've been busy, which is also really exciting. You know, we're obviously working with Honeit. So it's all good.
We love seeing new Vaia team members added. Seems like you've hired 3 or 4 folks in the last week or two. That's pretty exciting ramp.
Yes.
And these are global recruiters, right? I think one of the things we love about, working with your team is that you never know when that next recruiter is where they're going to be logged in from, right? I mean, you have team members in Greece, in Europe, throughout the States. Where else?
Oh gosh, I'm losing track these days. So we started with a couple of remote folks in the US, and then we expanded it out to Europe, and then we expanded it out to South Africa, and then we expanded it out to India. So we have people all over the world that are working with us. And I mean, I think it's great, especially I've been remote for a really long time. So when COVID hit, it wasn't a surprise that, people were doing remote work because that's the nature of our business. But I think that covering all different time zones helps with our clients. I think the advantage we have sometimes is with our folks that are in Europe, we have work and results to deliver to our US clients the next morning. And the same goes with India and South Africa. I think it's just great. So we are a highly distributed workforce. We absolutely love it. We just got off of an all hands team meeting, and it was just so nice to see like 30 squares on my screen, which was amazing. So yeah, all exciting, all good.
Fantastic. Stuff. Do your recruiters and does a colleague in India and a colleague in the States say pair up, for example, on recs and things like that to kind of divide and conquer, or to have that 24-hour sourcing and pipeline?
Yes and no. So we're a little different, and shameless plug, our website is going to probably launch in the next 10 days, I'm thinking. We're working closely with Red Ranch Media. So we're really excited to get our website launched. We're a little different in the way that we do our sourcing and our recruiting, in the sense that we're all project-based. So we actually use agile principles in doing our recruitment by project. So all of our clients get a project manager who's responsible for the overall management and success of the actual project. And then we have a couple different separate teams. So we have a sourcing team that does all of the sourcing and the research. We have an engagement team that does all of our outreach to our candidates. And then we have we call it the screening team, but they're really our engagement team as well, that use Honeit to do all of our phone screens. And so it's kind of like an assembly line where it's all managed and then packaged up directly to the client. So it doesn't matter what time zone anybody really is in, as long as the work gets done. Now, the project managers are typically assigned on the time zone of the client, just because there are meetings and communications and things like that. So yes, and they do pair up. We have project managers that pair up with sourcers, or a screening lead who's going to pair up with our sourcing team to make sure that everything flows smoothly.
And are these similar to Agile? Would you have defined sprints and things like that, where you can, based on the role, have a pretty good understanding of, say, hey, it'll take us 2 weeks to deliver X number of candidates or profiles, or have this number of screened candidates by certain deadlines, without overpromising or anything like that? You got it probably down.
Yes, a little bit. So a little bit in the sense that we have a timeline that we share with our clients when we start. And that timeline is typically week 1, you'll expect this, week 2, you'll expect this, week 3, and so forth. And so they get those expectations are managed from the very beginning, so that they know what they're in for. Depending on the number of roles, we might take on 5, try to close them, work on another 5. Some clients come to us with 50 roles that need to be worked on like right now. So that's kind of difficult, but we try to, the way that we manage it on the back end is we do use a Trello board, and all of our roles get entered into the Trello board. And then the sourcer picks up whichever role is priority and needs that, and puts that through the process. So not really like agile sprints per se, but the agile methodology, as far as not one or two or three specific people are assigned to specific roles. It's kind of like a free for all. You go and grab what's priority, push it through, and then we move on to the next one. So we try to work in that cross-functional way where we just, we get clear out the queue.
So now you have a team of global recruiters. Are you also working with global clients? I mean, I guess question follow-up would be that, what are you seeing? What's the state of the state in terms of the world of work? Are companies in Europe also still adopting kind of work from anywhere, remote policies? Are you seeing any changes? You've got kind of an interesting global view of what we're going through.
Yes. So we do work globally with companies all over the world. And we see a variety, honestly, Nick. We see a variety of people that are okay with being remote. And then we do see some other companies that require for people to be on site with some flexibility. I mean, it really depends on the nature of the business. Some businesses do need for their team members to be on site, but I am seeing a lot more flexibility as I have in the past. Obviously, if there's a company that's going to be hiring a C-level executive or someone who's going to be required to be responsible for team camaraderie, they need to be in an office. So they are looking to hire people in an office, but at the same time, they will be flexible as far as travel or come to the team meeting once a month. So I am seeing a lot more flexibility. I think companies that are not allowing that flexibility might have some problems. I mean, let's face it, people who even didn't work from home before are now comfortable at working at home. But at the same time, to play devil's advocate, there are people that enjoy going into the office and they want to go into the office. So I think that ultimately the companies have to offer some sort of flexibility in order for their employees to be happy.
We're kind of, especially, and obviously there's some companies that just can't have remote teams, just the nature of the work, you're on site and things like that. But for most, say, professional or in the office jobs, what used to be in the office, we are seeing kind of this hybrid thing. Like if we can get folks to commit to 3 days a week, that seems like a good compromise of flexibility and less commute times. And people got spoiled with getting hours back in their day from not riding a train or not taking a bus and things like that. That's hard to kind of to lose. So yeah, I think there's going to be some compromise on both sides, perhaps. Absolutely. Are you seeing, is vaccination becoming a topic when you're talking to candidates? I've talked to a couple of candidates where they kind of disclose that they're vaccinated and then they put that out there, and I didn't know if that reciprocal kind of conversation might be happening on phone screens, for example, just like salary and work authorization and some of those other check boxes we do. Do you think vaccination is going to be one of those new topics?
That's a good question. We haven't come across that yet. I think because most of our clients are hiring remote workers and are allowing for that flexibility, that hasn't been a question that they've asked us to ask the candidates. Now, I'm not interviewing candidates as much as our team members are, so that could very well be added into each individual call guide based on. I'd be interested. If that becomes a thing, or if that becomes you dance around it just like you dance around asking someone what they're making currently, because you can't ask it that way. You've got to ask it a different way. I wonder if the vaccination topic's going to. Well, cool, Angie. I've been a fan of yours for a while now. I loved following the kind of the sourcing community and the cyber sleuthing community from kind of the early SourceCon days and things like that. Remember going to one of the first SourceCon meetups in New York City, and this was like back in maybe 2007 or something like that. So it's been fun to see that growth and see sourcing become a profession of its own. And still there's that conversation of, is a junior recruiter a sourcer? And it's like, most people recognize that that's not the case. Sourcers are strategic. They have to really know what they're looking for and can be much more efficient with years of experience in recruitment first, you know what I mean? So I guess would love to hear your kind of story on how you got into that sourcing specialty, let's say, and then how you've been able to kind of build a team around that and kind of scale or clone yourself, which can be typically hard to do as a recruiter. Yes, it is hard. And I do agree with you that junior recruiters are not sourcers. Mm-hmm. I don't know why people say that, because it's a different skill. It's completely different. So I have a little bit of a unique background in that I think just like everybody, I didn't grow up saying I want to be a sourcer or I want to get into recruiting. I just fell into it. I was a stockbroker. So usually I start my conversations with, I'm a stockbroker turned recruiter. I used to work for Morgan Stanley, and I was unable to find a job after September 11th. So I would go and I would visit a recruiter who was a friend of mine, and I would meet with her regularly, and she would send me out on interviews, but there was not much action. Wall Street was terrible. Nobody was hiring, and I didn't know what to do. So I was in the worst, I was so depressed in the worst time of, trying to find a job. Educated, at least I think I'm smart, and I couldn't find a job. What the hell's wrong with me? So she said, why don't you just become a recruiter? And I thought, okay, I could do that. Well, what does a recruiter do? She said, look, people, you're personable. You could just get on the phone and talk to people. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I joined an agency, and I was handed a Yellow Pages book, a phone book. I was handed a phone with a cord, not a mobile phone, with a cord, an actual phone. And we would actually fax resumes to companies and ask them if they would be interested in looking at our candidates. So I started off an agency, and I hated it. I cried all the time because I thought, I can't do this. It was just tough. It was tough to go out and find clients. And so the nice thing about working at that agency was it was financial services focused, which I had the financial services background. And there were recruiters that were in there that were there for, they were lifers. And so they had the relationships with the majority of the financial services firms in the Chicagoland area and New York. And so they said, well, why don't you help? We'll get the jobs. Why don't you find the people? And I thought, okay, so we had licenses to Career Builder and Monster. And we had an applicant tracking system. I don't even remember what it was called. It was a long time ago. And I loved finding people. I just loved digging and finding people. And I thought, okay, I could do this. So I partnered up with the people who had the jobs, and then I would just go and find the candidates. And then it was a matter of being unique and sending them unique messages and getting on the phone, cold calling. I used to cold call as a stockbroker, so why not?
Well, being able to start with that, I'm a stockbroker turned recruiter. That you're standing out from 99 other recruiters that can't quite say that. And then there's a little bit of a bond there just at the beginning. Yeah.
Yes, great. You have to be able to handle rejection. When I was a broker, I cried. My boss would make me cold call him at night, and then he would just play, as someone that I was trying to sell municipal bonds to. And I had a really hard time. But I think that being in that environment, I think when you're in sales, you push, and it's just second nature. The first couple of rejections were tough, and then after that, I thought, well, I don't know this person. Who cares? If they don't want to talk to me, I'll pick up the phone and call somebody else. And it was the same thing with recruiting and sourcing, because you're not selling a product, you're offering an opportunity or a job or a new role or a new chance at something. And so if they want to listen, great. And if they don't want to listen, well, then you just move on and go to the next one. And so, I love it. I absolutely love sourcing and finding people. I went from agency then to working in corporate environments, and then went to some consulting companies. And at the end of the day, I just thought, I really, really like this. And I want to be able to partner with companies who are having a difficult time finding talent. And I thought we had, it's not a unique skill set to go find people, but I do think it is a unique skill set to hook them, get them interested, get them engaged, and learn about them, right? Because you're not trying to sell them a job. You're trying to learn about what they want and where they want to go, and then, match great people with great companies at the end of the day. So my whole goal was, I come from an entrepreneurial background. My dad was, an entrepreneur. And I thought, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to work on my own. And I didn't anticipate to be building, and continuing to hire people. I thought, well, I'll hire a couple people and it'll be a nice project by project company. And then, this boom happened. And I thought, well, let's have some fun. Let's train some people. Let's find some great companies that are looking to hire people, find them good candidates, and let's have fun doing it.
Fantastic. I love where you were going with that around one kind of, focus on sourcing versus bringing in the recs. I think that at the agency side of things, I started there too. And, I felt like as a recruiter, you could kind of control your own destiny, work on the recs you want to work on that are most likely to fill, et cetera, versus, going to sales and bringing in a hot rec. And then, people are like, well, that's an impossible rec, or you don't even have contact with the hiring manager, or, you do all that work and then nobody wants to work on your rec. Whereas a recruiter or sourcer, you're like, I'm going to work on the ones that'll fill, you know what I mean? And so you have a little more control over that. What are some of those, and I love the tip you talked about around trying to match kind of not just what someone's done, but the aspirational side of this. Again, we're trying to find someone who's here, who wants to maybe do a step up in some capacity, whether it's making a move, going in management, changing industries like that. And you got to uncover what that thing is that they really want to figure out that job that's going to be the great fit. How have you been able to kind of communicate some of those tips or strategies around going beyond just say keywords to try to, when does that happen? How do you get your recruiters or sourcers to replicate that kind of aspirational conversation?
Yes. So it's hard trying to sell, I use that as it's a lack of a better word, but to sell a company on, you should look at hiring this person because while they don't have all of the requirements, they're good because I spoke with them and they have the aptitude and the willingness. But I think that at the end of the day, it has to be a trusted partnership. And what we do here is we try to train all of our folks to have candid conversations with candidates, with clients, because let's face it, you can't fit a square peg in a round hole or whatever it is, right? A square round, the saying, right? So you have to have these, have to have these conversations. And I think it's candid. Like we don't get on the phone and, while we use our call guides using Honeit and we ask a series of questions because our clients want us to, we have conversations. I mean, we just get on the phone and we have conversations with people. And I always stress this. Talk to the person as if you're talking to them like now via Zoom, or that you meet them live, or send an email to someone as if you're going to be talking to them. Don't just, cookie cutter stuff, right? So we really try to train all of our folks internally to have those conversations. And then we also talk to our clients about, look, you're looking for a unicorn. You are looking for that purple squirrel. But if you remove one of these requirements, chances are one of the other requirements will cover that piece. I understand some technical skills you can't remove, but I think that overall, when you find good people, you should really take advantage of that. And I will tell you, our team did not come from recruiting and sourcing. Not every single person on our team came from there. I mean, we have a couple of PhDs on our team who left academia, who do research for us, or who get on the phone and we have one of our team members manages the entire Honeit process because that's what he loves to do. And he gets people trained and didn't have a recruiting background. And then some of our sourcers don't have sourcing backgrounds, but they want to learn. So we train them.
Derek's great. He's wonderful with feedback and suggestions. And we really, I think a lot of we love when he provides feedback because he knows the system so well. And I think you're right about the call guides. Like, it's funny when new companies start using Honeit, they kind of create a call guide with 24 questions, right? And if you're going to ask a candidate 24 questions on a phone screen, it's going to feel like a robotic experience, right? You're not going to have that. So, our feedback is, hey, let's get this to like 7 really good questions.
Yes.
Right. And so we see the call guides kind of morph over time because you're right. If you're so worried about asking every single little question, you're not able to have that free flowing conversation, which is where rapport happens and trust and relationships. And that's some of those recruiting relationships, as could last a lifetime. I still keep in touch with candidates I placed, 15 years ago, and, they become candidates again, or they become clients. And so I think we're always talking about that human element and why chatbots or one-way tools and things like that seem to be a step backwards, because for recruiters, it really is about the conversations, right? With the candidates, with the clients, with the references. That's all networking. That's all rapport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you, I did a Honeit interview. I get on the phone or I get on a Zoom when I interview people, and I literally watch them and I talk to them. And sometimes I'll jot down a couple notes or I'll write down a couple notes, but I really want to pay attention when someone's talking to me. And that's why we love Honeit, because we don't have to write down notes. But when I did Honeit for the first time, because all of the conversations that I typically have are very conversational, I always start off by, tell me about yourself and tell me why we're talking. Like, why did you respond to my email? Yeah. And I just hit the record button and then I never stop. So I never even go down. I do go down the list of questions, but it's usually one long one. And then thankfully Derek will go in and clean it up and fix it up for me because I can't.
You got to click stop. Yeah, no. And we say that all the time. Like, don't worry if your voice or your follow-up question is in the highlight, right? That's great. That shows you're digging deeper, that you're not just asking tell me about a time. You're asking, why did you choose that? It's all about the follow-up. And so some of that's like, hey, don't worry about removing yourself entirely from the clip. It kind of shows the hiring manager that you're doing your job and you're digging deep.
Correct.
But I love that. What are your thoughts kind of on the state of state? And I know we're getting close to time. You have a hard stop. We had mentioned, is it a good time for recruiting? It's kind of a crazy time for hiring in general. Do you think it's a great time for recruiters and sourcers? I mean, it seems to be a lot of activity.
Yeah, I mean, there is. I think it's a great time. I mean, yes, there be some stressful moments when you're trying to find people or hire people for our team or for our clients. Absolutely. But I think it's a wonderful time. I really do. I think it's a wonderful time to be in recruiting. It's exciting. It's fast paced. You talk to so many different people. You have options. You have so many different options. I mean, people that we've hired who don't come from this space are so thrilled to be learning about recruiting. I mean, I'm sure you know the numbers. Someone had shared on LinkedIn, there's 300,000 recruiter job postings, more than engineers. Okay, right. Fabulous. Well, it's our turn. It's our turn for people to want us. I don't know.
It's kind of nice. No, you're right. It's been a profession that's been a bit thankless or misunderstood perhaps, and kind of, misbranded, right? And things like that. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting time for our profession. I think, the fact that, talking to candidates now is a real opportunity to figure out what they really want after people have learned what they really want after this kind of this change we really are going through a dramatic shift in the world of work, right? Like that seems to be very clear. 18 months ago, 2 years ago, if you interviewed someone about what's that next job, I don't know. I don't know if that phone screen still counts. I don't know if those notes still count because that person has changed and their life situation has changed and they have a new perspective on what they want to do, how they want to spend their time. Waking life, 70% of our waking life is work, right? So I think it's had people kind of reset what they want to be doing with their time. So yeah, I think very exciting, fun to see like new tools and technology on the sourcing side of things. I know we didn't really get into that, but I'm sure you've got a pretty exciting tool stack that your team is using to find talent and engage talent and kind of get them on the phone. So I don't know if you have a minute to maybe talk about anything exciting on the front end of that you're using.
Sure. I mean, we use a number of different tools, but I will say that we do go a lot back to basics. We go back to old school Boolean because tools are tools and they're only as good as you use them. You can go in and you can use a tool. And if you don't put in your search criteria properly, you're not going to get the results. So we actually have a couple of team members that only do Boolean because that's what they like. They go and they do X-ray searches. I mean, let's face it, Nick, in today's world, you can find an email address. You can Google something and you can find an email address. You can go on LinkedIn and connect with someone and message them and let them know that you've got a great role that they might be interested in. So we use a variety of different tools. We use email. I mean, email is our biggest way to get in touch with people. We do send some messages on LinkedIn as well. I will tell you one area that we are not really big on, probably not because there's anything wrong with it, but we never took a moment to step back and explore is the text messaging piece. Like we don't text message people unless we've spoken with them, but I know that that's a really big area that people use different texting tools to text candidates. So I think that could be something that we would look at in the future. But again, from faxing resumes back in the day and removing a candidate's name to try to get someone, to try to get a job order, and coming today where you can send out an email, know whether they opened it or not, and, get a response. Technology does help, but at the end of the day, we really do take it back to old school and do some Boolean.
Boolean's wonderful. I think the biggest thing with all of these sourcing tools is that if it's not Boolean, you really don't know what the string is behind the interface, right? Whereas with Boolean, you do know your inputs, you know your ORs, you know how you put the parentheses is going to control the algorithm of the results. And if you're just putting keywords in some fields, you don't know what the Boolean behind that search string really is. I mean, because they're essentially doing the same thing, but you just can't see it, right? And so I remember there was a tool like when I first started on the agency side called Max Hire, and they had a really interesting, you probably know it, they had like a search grid. And it was this beautiful interface where you could say Java, HTML, CSS, for example, and then maybe 6 keywords, and it would give you a 6x6 grid, and it would show you all the misses. So it would do every combination, 5 out of 6, 4 out of 6, 3 out of 6, 2 out of 6. And you could see, to your point, hey, hiring manager, if we remove this one requirement, we're going to get 27% more candidates. And it was this great grid format. And I haven't seen many companies show that search string result in that way, where you know what you did wrong, or how you could subtly improve your Boolean.
That's fabulous. I love doing Boolean because with just one simple change, you just alter your results. There's so many different things, and you're not going to go in and you're going to put in a title. You're going to go put some keywords in, and then you're going to remove a keyword, and then you're going to look for skills. So it's a matter of how you do it. And there's so many different techniques. It's endless. We have a database that we go back to. And to your point about, what were people wanting 18 months ago and what are people wanting today? It's critical that we reach out to those people from 18 months ago and find out what their current situation is, because maybe then they were not interested in taking on a new role, but maybe now they are. Yep. Or back then when travel was required and they didn't want to travel, and now travel is not required. Well, let's reach back out to them and see, would you be interested in this post-sales engineer role? Because you don't have to travel. Well, they'll talk to you. So it really is exciting. I think there's so much, and I think this conversation can last a lot longer. I think we should do this again.
Yes.
Because we've waited so long to finally do this. While you were on vacation, I was on vacation. Maybe we pick the next time that we're both on vacation and we do it.
Let's do it remotely. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Exactly. We have different backgrounds, but I know my team would be thrilled too. I know Derek loves the tool.
Let's do
if you ever want to talk to him or anyone,
you've got some power users, and it's so fun to see everybody growing. And again, we thank you for being a great customer, Angie, and enjoy working with everybody in your team. So
likewise, Nick,
thank you for joining us. What's that? Oh, sorry.
Thank you for putting up with us, because I know we're very demanding and we give you very candid feedback. And thank you for taking that not so lightly and for working with us so closely. It really is a big difference. So we really appreciate all the help, and looking forward to your roadmap and all the great new things that are coming.
Thank you, Angie. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks again.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.